All right, good morning, everyone. It is here right at 10:05 on Wednesday, June 14th. I will call this meeting of the Industrial Development Board to order. Very excited for today's meeting. For everyone here, I'll ask you, today's theme will be 2025. We'll come back to that later. And riding the wave. So just keep that in mind. That's the theme for today's meeting. All right. So call the meeting to order, good to go. I will give everyone a minute in your packet. There are minutes from February and May in the packet. I will give everyone a minute or two to review those, and if the board so chooses, we can vote to approve those. So this would be in page 2 and 3, so this would be May and February. I'll give everyone a minute to review those.
I do believe we received these in our packets, the minutes.
Yes, they should be in the package you have.
So I went over it then, so I moved to approve the minutes.
A second.
I just have one tiny change. I think there should be a comma after Dominion project on the first bullet on the minutes, or May 10th date minutes. Other than that,
Can you show me?
right there.
Oh, okay.
Or remove the other comma out of the way.
Did you? It's just a comma
Yeah.
She doesn't
Where
know
it's
where.
not like,
material.
Where?
What page?
But she's an attorney, so it is material.
Comma can mean a lot of things in the right spot.
I mean, look,
Being a part of, or
talk
maybe
about
not.
like the Oxford comma, we can open that up.
Should we
for
just
a
take the
minute.
comma off?
Yeah, I think if we just take the comma off, it's fine too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
All right, so we have a motion. So I guess
Motion
board member
second.
here, will you? Well,
Oh,
sorry,
do
just
we-
to maybe just to make sure. Would you
Make a
mind?
motion to accept the minutes with the comma added to the previous two board meeting minutes.
A second.
Okay. All right. Any discussion? All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Motion carried. I appreciate it. Thank you. All right. Chairman's report. I'll move that to the end. Public comment period. We typically always do a public comment period anyway. We'll talk about that too during this meeting. Is there anyone here from the public wishing to speak? All right. We'll move on to items for discussion. Item 4. First item, Metro Finance update on incentive grant status for payouts. And again, a vote is required by the IDB to authorize payments. So I want to say everyone here has gone through this at least once, but again, these are I previewed this at the last meeting in May. So this is the annual payout for the Metro cash grant incentives. So the board today is not being asked to vote on the actual grant itself, but on the actual payout. Again, as reviewed, there are several still Metro incentive active deals that were approved several years ago. Those include HCA is one, which we'll hear about today. Phillips, number 2. And then, as I shared with this board, Alliance Bernstein was a deal that was approved back in 2019. They have started the clock on their 7-year, $500 per employee grant. So they would come before us next year for their first year of approval. And then still Bridgestone, there's still a cash grant for Bridgestone, but they did not submit this year, nor did they submit yet last year, because there's a minimum job. The way the job grant works is there's a baseline for jobs, and if the minimum is not met, then can't submit. So Bridgestone did not submit again this year, nor did they last year. And then the other one is Amazon, which was approved also several years ago, but Amazon has not yet started their clock on their grant, so not sure when they would be before us, so I can't speak to that. And again, these grants are $500 per employee. The Alliance Bernstein grant, when it was approved, based on their job estimate, would be a little under $4 million over the 7-year period. So again, just giving the board update on that. I think Josh is the only person, maybe you, I don't think you were here when we did this last year. I think everybody else has done this one time, so just kind of want to, review that for you. So I will turn it over to, let's see, Miss Petler, are you ready to go? You ready to talk to us about the job grants? Give us a quick update on the numbers.
I didn't know I was gonna do that.
Okay. Well, you don't have to. We have it in the packet. I can read it.
No.
No worries.
Sorry, I was not prepared.
No, you're fine. So if you look in the packet, so in your packet here, there's two things included. So I'll give everybody a second. So if you go to, we can start with HCA, which is WCP Properties. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, page 8. So again, these job grants are certain definitions that have to be met for what is considered meeting the metric of a job that would apply to this job grant. And as you can see, if you look at, I want to say this was page 8, what the companies have to do. So what this board is being asked to vote on today is the payout for jobs for a period ended December 31st, 2022. And as you can see here, the amount that is requested for payoff, you can see the incremental jobs compared to the baseline. So the baseline jobs was 239. The qualifying incremental is 2,179. And then you multiply that, right there. You multiply that times 500, that gives you the $1,089,500. And again, these are grants, so that's why you're seeing here amount expended by the company for their office and reimbursement for expenditures that they spent. So that's what we're being asked to, this board is being asked to approve today. Also, there's a third-party report that's required, a third-party audit report that's required by the companies to show that, these jobs do qualify, they did meet the metric. So that's how that works. I know we have people from HCA here. You guys were before us, obviously, we ended up doing it a lot later last year, just due to a lot of changes that we've had, but obviously getting back close to being on schedule this year. But I'll give you all a couple minutes if there's anything that you all want to say. And this is the last year of the HCA cash incentive grant. But if there's anything you all want to say or any demographic information you want to share, feel free, and I'll turn it over to the board and my fellow colleagues in case they have any questions.
Sure, great.
I'm Debbie Chastain, and I think I know most of the people on the board, because I've been here several times. And I'm the managing director in our tax department.
I'm Miles Software J, Division Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion for TriStar. It's my second time being back, so thank you.
Yeah, and I'm Steve Jasper with Bassberry and Sims, outside counsel here just to answer any questions about the contract or any legal questions you guys might have.
And first, I just want to thank the board for your support. And we have used, the money from those grants and invested another $300 million in 2 locations to bring those 2,179 incremental jobs, incremental Davidson County jobs, and those jobs pay an average of $114,000 a year. Approximately 41% of those employees are residents of Davidson County. And these grants cover 2 locations, Capitol View location, which is located at 1100 Dr. Martin L. King Jr. Boulevard, and Health Park, which is located directly off Old Hickory Boulevard. And you may remember that Capitol View is home to Health Trust, Sarah Cannon, and Paralon, and the Health Park is home to HCA, Healthcare Physician Services. And I want to think it's the original anchor tenant in the Capitol View location that we help to encourage other investment and transform that North Gulch area. And again, just want to thank you.
I'm just going to cover just a few demographic.
Sure, thank you.
Demographic information for the board. For Capitol View and Health Park employees, as of 12/31/2022, a little more than 52% are female. Approximately 23% are people of color. That specific breakdown: 10% are Black or African American, 7% are Asian, 4% Hispanic, Latino, and 2% identify with 2 or more covered a couple of programs and initiatives from a diversity, equity, and inclusion standpoint last year. Keep it brief, I'll stay to the demographic numbers, but happy to answer any questions about progress that we've seen since that time. But again, I want to echo Debbie's sentiments as well. Just thank the board for the support, opportunity to share. Happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yep, I'll go start here to my right.
Oh, okay. Great. I really appreciate the work you've done for community. Awesome. So you said this is the last year, so it's been 7 years. And you have reached your total goal of employees through this grant contract. What has been the retainage? How many have you retained? Have you seen some start, numbers dropped, or have you retained all that you've hired at this point?
Our numbers have been fairly consistent. We did add the Galen School of College of Nursing.
Okay.
That's at Capitol View now, so we rotated some people,
Okay.
essentially. And then we've also had some people that have went completely work from home.
Okay.
Most people are not. Most people are in the office. But we do have those, and those, if they don't live in Davidson County, they do not qualify
Right.
for this. So the reduction has basically been to accommodate the Galen College of Nursing in the building, and also we have, I think it's over 500 employees that are work from home that don't resign.
Okay.
Sorry.
No,
go ahead.
Anything
I'm
else,
done.
Board
Yeah,
Member
that's-
Bright?
Yeah, so I wasn't here when this was initially made, so thanks for HCA's investment. You mentioned the average of $114,000.
Right,
Is that just of these new positions? Or
yes,
okay.
it is. It's the incremental position.
Gotcha. And what's the median wage
I
of
don't
those?
have that.
It's like
number with me.
sometimes if we have,
Yeah.
$500,000 execs, that skews the average.
Right,
So it's just wanting to make sure that if we're giving these job grants, that it's really trickling down to the folks that need it the most,
right,
as opposed to flowing just to the execs.
right.
Yeah, I just to add on that, I don't know what the median is either, but I'll say that with the number of jobs, it seems like that distortion is probably less likely in this case.
And I guess this is more of a question just for the board in general. HCA is, again, thankful for the investment, huge benefit in the healthcare industry. Is there, seems like the current administration, there's a shift away from giving grants. Is that expected to be the norm going forward in future administrations, do we think? Or just thinking, if we think about, again, thankful for the investment, but do we need to continue as a board the same framework of investments that we've given in the past? Should we change around those metrics that we want to see as a board?
So great question. So, obviously, I try not to get into, what ifs down the line, because can't speak to that. What I can say, and certainly I was on the board, and so, I voted supported these incentive deals, and obviously it was there's a different time, obviously.
Totally.
A lot different going on. But yeah, I certainly think that we can certainly ask those questions. One thing to keep in mind with these grants is they also have to go before Metro Council. So these job grants, the actual grants themselves, were approved in Metro Council first. Then they came to this board for approval. And then the other point I would say too, you missed this, and this is not a slight on you, it's just your timing on the board. Board member Davis, when he was on Metro Council, he was one of the lead sponsors of the Do Better bill. And so, we spent some time on that at the October meeting, specifically going into detail on the Do Better bill, and certainly would defer to him because he was the expert on that. But some of the questions that you have are some of the reasons why the Do Better bill came about, and so HCA and Phillips, what we're hearing from today, those incentives were approved before the Do Better bill.
Okay.
Alliance Bernstein and Amazon were approved after the Do Better bill. But yeah, certainly these are questions that we can ask, and I will say this too, also like the demographic information, under when this was approved, they're not required to provide this. This was something that we asked for several years ago. So I appreciate them sharing, but it's not a requirement when they came under. But yeah, certainly questions to ask. You know, if, and again, who knows? I don't know. We know there's going to be a new mayor. I mean, I don't know if we know, you know, who that will be. But you know, if there is a push to do more of these type job grants, those are certainly questions, you know, to ask. And again, you know, we're in a very different. There's a lot has changed since. Just keep in mind, this is a 7-year deal, and I'm remiss exactly which year that was approved. But take Alliance Bernstein for example. The board approved that deal in 2019. It's a 7-year, $500 per employee grant. They're not starting year one until this year. So they're not coming before us for the first time until December 2024. So, you know, by the time they're finished, my term would be up on the board. You know, basically everybody's here in term would be up, you know. So that just speaks to, you know, it is important if we get new ones to ask those questions because of the long term. And again, the companies decide when they start the clock, so they don't have to start immediately. So great question.
I agree, we need to honor our commitments and very for business. We just want to make sure that we're asking the right questions.
Absolutely.
So, under the Do Better bill, we don't actually get the median income. We've brought that up before. We get the average, but it's broken down by category, and so you can see, you know, categories of workers tend to have different ranges, and so we are able to see that. I think, are there 7 categories under Do Better where it breaks down, and there are differences between the categories. We brought up median, but we are unfortunately like stuck to what we get, which is average and range in each category. So you can see high, low, and average.
That's right. But good point. I was in a meeting yesterday and someone was saying average. I said the same thing. What's the median? You know. So great questions. I appreciate it. Vice Chair, any questions or comments for HCA?
My only question is, I know that you're not prepared to talk about it, but it did go through Metro audit before it got here, right? Is that, and Metro signed off on this?
I did review everything, I
That's-
just don't have it fresh in my
No,
head.
that's perfect. That's
Yeah.
my only question.
Yes.
And thank you for the work you do on that every year.
Yeah.
She reviews everything thoroughly before it gets here and checks all the audit stuff. So.
That's right. So thank you. And that would be for every company. So next year with Alliance Bernstein, same thing. So there's the annual statements you have and then the third-party audit report that also has to be provided as well. Board Member Watson. I'll go here. Any questions or comments for HCA?
Not really. I appreciate you for answering my questions that you couldn't answer last time, though.
Kim, ready?
Yeah, you look dead at me, too.
It was a good question last year. I'm sure we're prepared.
And I have a question. When you broke down, I know it's not required, but when you broke down the demographics of your your workers, you said 52% lived in Davidson County?
It's, no, 41%.
I think 52% was female employees.
Oh, female. And then you broke down 10% African American, 7 Asian, 4 Hispanic, 2 others. Does that mean 56 is white? Did I miss
So
something?
there are some additional percentages
Okay.
that don't make up,
Okay.
so less than 1%. That's Native
I
American.
know, but that's gonna be very small. right?
Very small, yes, but
So-
the rest of that percentage, so I think it's, makes it like 0.2 for one, 0.01 for the
And
other.
I'm sure you're doing a good job, but how do you, if your hospitals are reflective of the communities we serve, and the community demographics are changing, especially in Middle Tennessee, the Southeast, or where, I mean, I know we're talking TriStar here, but, just FYI, that's a huge gap in reflecting. I know I was board of Southern Hills, TriStar Southern Hills, and steps were taken to reflect the community we serve, which is South Nashville, and because you have to be intentional, so just FYI on that.
Yeah, and these numbers, are specific to Capitol View and Elk Park.
Yeah.
We are seeing.
I do that, yeah.
We are seeing that trend across our facilities, our hospitals.
I mean, I know with them we have to do it, but just, again, you have to be intentional, but I'm sure you're doing a great job, so
Yes.
just notice that, so, thank you.
All right. Any other questions or comments related to
So is there,
this incentive grant. All right. If there are no further questions or comments, I'll certainly entertain a motion from the board to approve the annual payout in the amount of $1,089,500.
so moved?
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, second, Board Member Haston. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carried. Thank you. Thank you all. All right, the next one,
Dean, here's your pen.
the next one that we have is Phillips. They reached out to me, unfortunately had something come up last minute, so they were unable to be here in person. We try to keep these incentives, the Metro deals, at the same meeting. But you can certainly look at their information. They were obviously here last year. And again, always been very forthcoming with demographic information. You can see that in their annual statement. Gender breakdown 58%, Black African American 25%, Hispanic or Latino 5%. And then you see their county of residence 51%. And for this Phillips grant, number of jobs as of December 31st is $620, $500 per employee. And they certainly reached out to me and said that they would love to come back and talk to us at a later date, and we're very apologetic that they couldn't be here. But certainly if there's any questions, I can work through Latanya and we can get those answered, or again, we certainly have them again here later in person. So any questions regarding the annual statement for Phillips? And again, this is on page 1, 2, 3. So page 4 of the packet starts the third-party audit, and then 6 has the annual statement. Any questions or comments?
Is the range of jobs in here as well? Maybe I'm just missing it.
If you look at the background, so their office is located, they're headquartered basically in Boston, but with this office that they opened in Nashville, focuses are commercial operations, which include finance, human resources, IT, marketing, procurement, quality, and regulatory.
And on the middle there, it's really just a curiosity. How do you pronounce her first name? Rizov. You see it there? KRZYSZTOF. No one knows. Okay, never mind.
I'm guessing Christoph.
Yeah,
That's okay.
that's not my
I know.
expertise.
I'm just looking at it going, whoa. That's a nice thing.
I'll refrain from commenting.
And Ms. Petley, same thing. Everything's been provided by the company on time.
Yes.
They provided the reports, been reviewed, no questions, issues.
Correct.
All right.
I'll make a motion if we move forward.
Second.
All right, Board Member Wright, you properly seconded it. Thank you. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carried. Thank you. All right, moving on to item number B, public chapter number 300. Metro Legal, I'll let you discuss this. We kind of already started obviously several years ago, I think even before you joined us, we had started a general public comment period just at every meeting. Certainly we're required to have public comment periods for certain items, such as TEFRA hearing related to bonds, et cetera. But we started several years ago, just open public hearing, public comment period anyway. So with that said, though, I'll turn it over to you on this new law and what we need to do. If you can kind of just talk the board
Sure. Thank
high
you, Mr.
level through this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there should have been a memo and a copy of the public chapter in your materials. But
The last 2 pages.
Yeah, so, but just to briefly go over it, so, this year, the General Assembly passed a new law that basically requires all bodies that are subject to the Open Meetings Act to adopt a public comment period as part of their agenda, where they're gonna be taking action or voting on anything. And I say voting, but it also, if you're gonna be deliberating on anything that you may take and vote on at a future meeting, that also would require a public comment period. So starting July 1st, all boards, all commissions, all public bodies will have to have a public comment period. Metro Legal has reviewed the law, and we've made recommendations to all of our boards that it's our suggestion that you do the public comment period as the first thing on your agenda. You do have the ability to put some restrictions on what the public comment period is. So we have recommended you might want to limit the number of folks that are able to come to each meeting. You may want to limit the time. You may want to require them to sign up beforehand so you know who's coming. The law does specifically require that if you are going to have a public comment period, that you do need to allow for opposing viewpoints to be represented at that meeting. So what some boards are going to do is that when folks sign up in the beginning, they'll be able to say whether or not they're for or against a particular item. So that way you can ensure that you've got a good representation of different voices at the meetings. So you guys do normally do a public comment period at every meeting, but I think you might need to sort of massage it a little bit to make sure it comes into compliance with what this new law requires. So again, in the memo, there are some suggestions of some features that you can add to a new public comment policy period, but you guys are the board, so you make the decision as to what that looks like. But Metro Legal is certainly here to assist or answer any questions that you may have as you move forward.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, the only restriction we have right now is roughly 3 minutes.
That's
Is that right?
correct.
That's correct.
That's correct.
Seems to
Which
work
you
pretty
agree
well.
with, which, based on your, not, I shouldn't say agree, but based on your recommendation, when you said time, that was
Right.
what you meant, like,
Correct, a
Okay.
restriction on each speaker, how much time they have, so they don't come up here and talk for 10 or 20 minutes.
got you.
If it's a big issue, 3 minutes is a long time.
It's a long time?
If it's a big issue, there's 20 people.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, but if it's an issue of just something, that's no
Yeah,
big
this
deal.
would have helped a couple years ago. Had a meeting that went to about 3 o'clock, if I
Yeah,
recall.
I think we had 3-minute restrictions on that.
No, I know, but I'm saying the other piece we did, but
The number of
it was the
people.
number of people.
So we
You
can
recall
say, if there's more than 20 people, it goes down to 2 minutes, or that would.
Yeah, you're just kind of, just
I'm
saying
just
how do
saying.
you, right,
So 3 minutes for 1 or 2 people is no big deal.
that's right.
All right.
And did you mention a restriction on the amount of people?
Yeah, you can restrict the
You could.
number of folks who are able to speak at each meeting.
So that would actually cut the time down. So the max number is 10 and 3 minutes each. then,
Per
you know.
side,
Yeah, that's right.
if they're real, yeah.
Yeah, so we still, yeah, okay.
But I
Still okay.
I do think there are some concerns, right? Like you see in council, you may have 2/3 of the people are on one side and 1/3 of the people are on the other. And if you let equal sides talk equally, then it actually isn't representative of where people stand in their comments. So I don't know, it's.
But that's, yeah, we can max
10
10 on each
for,
side.
10 against, total, so
Well, but
20
then
max.
again, if you have, say you have 20 people show up on one side and 10 on another, then it's still not representative of who is there.
We only allow 10 from the fourth
Right,
side.
so
or the-
good point.
Yeah.
So in that scenario, would you then need to, so I
mean-
guess would you, go ahead, finish your point.
And I guess what I would say is like 3 minutes has worked really well, and even for Oracle, that was a really big deal. And I think what we did and listening to everybody was really important. And it's not. I mean,
That's not happening all the time.
it's not happening, and unless it's a problem that we need to visit, it does seem that any restrictions are a little arbitrary given how well things have worked, and
So
given
3
how
minutes to
yeah the three
for anybody, for everybody.
yeah, and if we start to see that meetings are dragging on and it's not always relevant or
Well, we've never
Mark
had,
needs to get to lunch.
Yeah.
well, we've never had a big, yeah.
Because
we've
there's no
never had
snacks
that.
here.
Yeah, I know it's no snacks. I had to bring my own water. This and
So do we
that.
want
Wish I
to
remembered.
Sports authority, right? If you're on the agenda, you have to bring food because we have to sit through. That's the restriction.
Hey,
No.
Graham, but what if 100 people show up?
Well, we did, but now we did probably, I would estimate with Oracle, I don't know if it was 100, but we had a lot of people.
Yeah, but that was Zoom, right?
It was Zoom.
That's
Because
different.
that was during the,
It was
you know, we were
during
still, it was right
couldn't
before we
eat
stopped
during
meeting virtually. But, you know,
Really got
we had a lot of people, but what I would say to Vice Chair's point as far as how often that happens, I mean,
It's rare.
yeah, this is, you know,
Since I've been here, we haven't had.
well, yeah,
We
this,
haven't had open comment.
this coming on 9th year for me, and that was the most we've ever had
Wow.
Now,
at a meeting.
if I may, Mr. Chair, just to clarify, just to
Sure.
make sure we're all on the same page, if you are gonna cut off the time limit, I think that needs to be established before the meeting, so you can't do it in the
Yeah.
middle of the meeting. So
We get it,
if you have 100 people show up,
Right, and you
Right,
get
so
3
put-
minutes, you have to let
100
everybody do
minutes,
it,
so,
yeah. Well, let me ask this question for LaTanya. Anything that you know about, is there anything that you know about today that would need to come before us next month? Just in general? Okay. So, one thought would be, if there's nothing necessarily on the agenda, we don't necessarily have to decide this today.
Correct.
Correct?
correct.
You know, if we want to, that's fine too.
Well, I think we should. I mean, it's on the agenda, and you can give us the recommendation, the 3 minutes been working.
Well, right, no, I'm saying we've been doing 3 minutes
I know,
already, so
but we can adopt something today.
we can. I'm just saying we don't have to. If you want to, so I think where the vice chair was going, if I'm understanding you correctly, was like, hey, we haven't put a limit on people, and there's been some benefits to that, and even though the Oracle meeting was long, that's something, how often will that happen? And it was, from your perspective, really good that we were able to let all those people, because I guess, to your point, if we had a limit of 20, in that case for Oracle, if the board had a cap on people, would we have had to let basically 10 people speak in favor, 10 people speak against, and then
Not
that's
necessarily,
it?
I mean, what the statute says
Okay.
is that you just need to have differing voices represented, so it doesn't necessarily say it has to be equal number
Oh,
of
okay,
voices on
okay.
each side.
But you have to let,
Yeah, but you know, if you have like 10 people show up and they're all for it, and then you have one person that's against, and your limit is 10, you can't have just the 10 that are for to speak, you need to allow the other person.
right,
Because the idea is that you're getting opposing viewpoints,
Yeah.
but you're considering, deliberating, and making a
Does
decision.
it make sense to have like a pro rata share? So in that instance, maybe you have the one person and then the 5 instead of 10.
But again, I think we're also making an assumption, if we divide it just into two sides, that everybody on one side's gonna make the same arguments, right? And this has never been a problem for this board, and so putting arbitrary limits on something that frankly, a lot of people have a lot of questions about
So
these things.
are you saying, let's keep it as is?
Yes.
With unlimited people until we know that we need to have it, if it gets worse?
Yes.
Okay, can you make that motion?
Yes, I would move that we keep it at 3 minutes, we keep it at the beginning of the agenda,
that's it.
and,
Anything else?
yeah.
Anything else you wanna add?
Right now, do we limit it to things on the agenda?
No, I don't think
I
so.
don't think right now you don't.
No, it's a general public comment.
But we haven't, yeah.
But it's been fine, right? So the motion would be that it's 3 minutes and at the beginning
So
of the
you could
agenda.
technically have group of people come in that's talking about something that
Oracle.
has nothing
Yeah,
related.
somebody
to
could come in today, for example, whatever, and they could say, hey, this board shouldn't have passed the Oracle deal. And now personally, this is
Okay,
just
and
me.
you saying even though it's not an agenda, it's still business of the IDB.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I'm just saying personally, now again, if the board feels differently, we can change that. Now,
Yeah.
personally, if people, it's all public record, so
Right,
if
right.
someone wants to comment, but that's me, but today we could, if the board wanted to,
Well, I mean,
say it has to be related to something. on the
it needs to be
agenda.
related to the business that we handle.
We can't control that, though.
We can't control.
It's an open public forum, it's a public.
Well,
We
so,
can
so
talk about
just to be clear,
dogs.
the
It has
the
nothing
new
to do with-
statute allows you to limit it.
Yeah, we
You
could
do have
put-
the option to limit it to just items that are on the agenda
Okay.
that day.
If the board wants to
If
do
you
that.
wanna go that route, but if you wanna keep it open-ended, that's fine as well, that's your decision.
I think open-ended works, and I think one thing we know is there are deals that sometimes simmer for a few meetings, and having those comments come early rather than the meeting when we're voting it up and down could be beneficial, right?
All right, so just to clarify, you made a motion,
The
Vice Chair.
motion is that it be limited to 3 minutes and at the beginning of our meeting, just like we're handling it now.
All right, so that's the motion on the table.
I will second that.
All right, we'll second that. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, motion carried.
Y'all look nervous.
I think I
You
just,
worried bunch of
well,
people are
my
gonna show
thing,
up?
I don't think my answer,
No,
I don't
we've been doing
think
it.
you
all
understood
night.
my question. It's an open forum, right? So they can come and discuss anything, whether it's ID related to us or not. So if someone wants to come talk about dogs.
I mean, they can do that now. They
Right,
don't.
so my question was, shouldn't it be related to the business that we handle?
But some of these issues takes longer meetings, so I know what you're saying, cause it will control the topics, but we don't know, cause someone might not show up and we have to table it and they show up. So, you're
Well-
just trying to control,
So, valid point. So we just passed it with what we just made a motion. So here's what I would say to your concerns, which are valid. What I can just tell you is historically, and we've been doing this public comment period, we started that before COVID, so.
Okay.
And again, for some things, like we have to do a public hearing for some matters. But as far as just the general public comment period, we started that, so it's probably at least been 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
It has not been an issue. And again, in almost 9 years, the most time was Oracle. There were some other ones that we thought were gonna be tons of people, and it wasn't the case. So, to your point, I would say valid concerns. You know, we just made a motion, Vice Chair just made a motion, Board approved. Let's revisit. You know, we can always certainly amend as
Yeah.
needed, and see how it goes. But, I mean, just think you've been on the board for several years.
No.
Has it been an issue to you?
Not at all. But since we're voting on it and
Yeah,
discussing something
no.
now, then let's bring up the possibility that something could happen.
I
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
understand.
So, but it's fine. I mean, it's fine.
So with the specifically called meetings, like Oracle and some of the other deals where we have to have them, those are naturally limited to the
Okay.
topic.
Okay.
Outside of those specific public comment hearings that we have to hold, I could be wrong, but I don't think anybody is ever showing to our general.
No, we've had people, no, we have.
Outside of deals that we're looking at,
When we organize them to come,
but aren't we doing like,
we'll talk about that.
aren't those
But that's,
like?
see, that's related to the business we're doing,
But aren't
so that's
those
okay.
yeah, those are
It's
related
to the business we're doing. I'm just
specifically
talking
To
about something
something.
that has
something
nothing
on the
to do
agenda.
with
Yeah,
what
I
this
don't-
board does at all. That's what I was worried
Yeah.
about. Somebody could just with a wild hair just wanna come talk about something that has nothing to do with what we do.
I
I mean, it's kinda like, okay, it's
Civic participation is low, you'll be
Yeah.
alright.
just like to keep it on topic.
You know, it could be interesting,
Yeah.
right? If just like one guy wants to come talk about dog ordinances.
Or your 50 people wanna come talk about dog ordinances, and then
We'll
you gotta
take-
hear it.
hey, listen, don't worry. Don't worry.
Don't bring it on you.
No, if we have.
I'll
if
order
we-
the pizza.
Right,
That
if we have 50 people, I'll call it intermission. You can go get your snacks, no worries.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough.
All right, well, great discussion, and again, you know, part of just kind of the reason behind that too was just to try to encourage more participation.
Right.
So that people could talk even if it wasn't on a specific matter that required us to, like, for example, these cash grant incentive deals that were approved several years ago. Like, those don't require a public hearing at the IDB, right? But people may still wanna talk about it in general. So that was kind of
Yeah, that's perfect.
just open it up to folks.
That makes sense.
All right, so item number C,
Can I ask a quick point of
Yes.
clarification? When you guys say at the beginning meaning right after roll call?
yeah, let's do it right after,
Right after meeting minutes?
I would,
Oh, yeah, it's not on this agenda. Generally, we do roll call, and then we do the public
That's
hearing.
right, which is-
And then we do minutes.
which is the order I did
Yeah.
today. Thank you. All right, I appreciate it. All right, so appreciate everyone, and really excited, and I'll talk a little bit more about this. I'll get everybody out of here. Good time today. Respect everyone here. Really excited. Obviously, there's something the committees that we had discussed previously. I brought this up as well, and you know, just due to transition, etc., a lot going on. You know, it didn't happen, and so we're gonna make it happen now. We've got a lot of momentum with this board, a lot of good expertise, so we'll move forward. I will let Metro Legal, so I followed up with with Josh here a few weeks ago after, you know, we decided, hey, let's move forward with this to really grow and do more. So Josh, I'll turn it over to you if you, like, big picture, anything you wanna share with us on how we form this committee.
Yeah, I did not tell Lexi I was gonna make her talk. I don't know, are you prepared to talk?
All right,
No, I'm not gonna make you talk.
all right, come
You
on.
might need to chime in if I say
I can
something.
chime in.
If I say something incorrect. So when we had the last meeting, I mentioned to you guys I was gonna look at your bylaws to see if there's anything specific about the formation of committees, and there is not anything in there, but your bylaws do say that where things are not covered therein, the Robert Rules of Order applies. So in Robert Rules of Order, there are methods for basically creating special committees or standing committees or ad hoc committees, which I think this one will qualify for. And so the way that you can do that is obviously the board just needs to vote to do that. So I think the first step would be for the board to decide to create the committee, vote to approve it, and then the next step of this would be trying to figure out who's going to be on the committee. And you obviously can appoint board members to be on that committee. You can appoint folks from outside of the board, outside of Metro, to be on the committee. Your choice, but there are different ways that you can do nominations. There can be nominations from the floor, which basically from the board members can submit names. You can basically have the chair be able to have the authority to decide who is appointed to the committee. Or the third option is you can create a slate of committee potential appointees. So instead of one person being nominated, you just have a whole list for the board, and then the board can vote to approve that list. Did I say that all correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And is there one method that's, and again, I think I think we've got some folks, I don't know, I haven't talked to anybody, but I think we have people that would want to be involved. So we have 6 people here today, and kind of my philosophy on it would be if the board wants to establish a committee, if the best route from just a Robert Rules perspective is for the chair, I would just appoint anyone who's interested at this point. If you feel like you have value to the board to serve on the committee, be on the committee. And then the question for that would be too, if there was someone that was not here today, let's say, that later that expressed interest, that they want to be on the committee, could that committee then add that person?
So when you create the committee, I think you need to set the number of members that it's going to be.
Okay.
So obviously.
That was my other question, yeah.
So obviously, if you, in the beginning, appoint the full number of the committee members, then that obviously would be an issue if you have someone else that wants to be appointed, so.
Somebody could drop off or something.
Someone could drop off, and
Sure.
then obviously you could, or they could
Well-
agree to step down, but, sorry.
So, in our last meeting, what is the objective of the ad hoc? I know it's with housing, but what is the mission, what is the objective of the ad hoc? Is it, we can't put people on the committee unless we know the vision of it, so that we have the right people on the committee. So it's just not a committee, it's,
That's right. So,
Oh, go ahead.
and you mentioned some ideas last time, so I think that has to be clear before we know who we want on the committee.
Yeah, I think sort of if we're looking at what we've talked about over the past little over a year, it's not just housing, it's our fee structure, our program structure, the applications, right? Like right now, most of our programs don't even have applications. And how are we gonna structure what we can
Applications for the,
like, there's no TIF for pilot application,
okay,
there's no
okay.
job grant, like, I think just bonds have an application, right? And, the fee, there's no fee structure for the matters we handle, and if you, you can look at, a lot of counties have a lot of really good resources that we don't have throughout Tennessee, so I don't wanna limit it just to Memphis, but Memphis is big like we are, and like the Memphis Edge, you can look at their website and they have all kinds of programs and fees, and there are things they focus on. And so it really is just like, I think, a restructuring of how we handle deals, the information we have out there, what our fees are.
it has nothing to do with affordable housing.
So it is,
That's a
there
part of it.
are, it's
Yeah.
a part of it. So
Okay.
the affordable housing initiatives that Memphis Edge does, for example, are part of it. But there are also things like Clarksville does pallets for daycares, which we could do, but we've just never done, right? And there are all kinds of different things you can do. And I think it also involves pulling in the housing report that the mayor's office did that talked about fees, because I know a big priority in Metro right now is reimagining the fees for all of the things that Metro does for businesses, so that, maybe affordable housing doesn't need the same fees as, an oracle, right? If we're talking about TIFs, and how can fees from some be used to support other things? But that was in the housing report. But the sort of taking the IDB from just this sort of landing page on Metro that's, find LaTanya, figure out what you can do, which she's amazing at.
I gotta
to-
figure out what to do.
To like, how can we actually operate like our sister IDBs across the state in ways that are transparent?
Okay.
That the fees, we haven't touched our fees in decades, I don't think, that are consistent with not only our sister cities in size in the state, but frankly, those much, much smaller than us as well.
That makes sense, okay.
So,
I'm sorry for interrupting.
No, you're
I
fine.
also offered that we have a fabulous intern,
yep,
David,
get going.
who's ready
All
and
the stuff.
available to be at the meetings and document what you come up with and get the website changes made if that's the next step. So please take advantage of him. He's here for the summer if you decide to move forward.
Absolutely.
And also, he's also done some research on different websites around the country for IDBs. And I didn't ask you to speak either. Did you want to speak a little bit?
I can speak
He's
if
an
you want.
intern.
Tell him what you found.
So what I will say is New York's IDB is probably the best website of the larger metropolitan areas that I've looked at. So I looked at Chicago, LA, San Francisco, Seattle, Atlanta. New York's stood out, one, because they, just based off of the website, it is a sub-page of the New York City government's website, but it is its own branding, it has its own mission statement, it goes through all of the members, what their expertise is, it goes through all of the programs that they offer, all of the applications, and it's all very, very, very well organized in terms of larger general categories like affordable housing or business incentives, all of those things. And then there's subcategories under all of those pages, so it's easy for people to navigate the page and understand all of these, programs that they offer. So I'm happy to provide that information, I guess once I go
So once you
down to
guys
the
have the
office,
content, he already has looked at some models to get whatever you all come up with.
But what's good about that is it will show you what content you could fill out and provide, rather than just being like, what are we,
Do they have a name?
NYCIA or something like that, but I don't have it with me right now, but I will provide that.
And I would just say, Board Member Oakley, great question. Thank you too, Vice Chair. So when we've discussed this, that's part of the reason it would be kind of like an ad hoc.
Yeah.
Because we just went through, we've talked about a lot of different things, right? So we're not going to accomplish, everything, which that's kind of some of what, just some ideas I had for this board and obviously for the committee, to your point, was, setting some goals. And so, I've talked about this previously, but we have a function for the IDB that's on our website. Which the function of the IDB says is to acquire, own, lease, and dispose of properties to the end that corporations may be able to promote industry and develop trade by inducing manufacturing, industrial, and commercial enterprises to locate in Nashville. So that's our function. But this was something I was talking about here shortly, but what is our vision? And I would say that's something, in committee, then to this board, that we think about the next step where we want to go and together come up with the vision. And obviously affordable housing is a part of that. It's certainly a piece. And so I appreciate that insight too, because in thinking too, we can certainly do more. We've done a few affordable housing projects, not enough. We want more. That's why I said today's theme is more and ride the wave. Let's carry the momentum. But we can certainly put something together on the projects that we've done and help use that, to your point, where people can see, because some folks still don't know, like, oh, the IDB does,
So we're going to try to streamline some of our application processes.
Yeah.
And then
So,
also educate that we have an application process so that they're easy to do. But when you say something like, as the function that's stated, is that we can look at metro property, right? Is that what you just read?
So it didn't say metro. It doesn't say metro property, but we can, and I did speak about this last year. We can, as the IDB, we can own property, or we could buy property, for example. We have the ability to own property.
The IDB board.
That's right.
Okay, so when, we know that, I don't think Diego Iguarte is still with the mayor's office, but I knew his big project was looking at look at all our metro properties, where does it stand, what can we trade, what can we sell, what can we use for affordable housing? Of course, you don't hear about it after you meet the first time, but, sometimes I think our role, I've been on this for 9 years as well, is a buffer sometimes, when there's a vote and we just kind of we're in between the council and in the community, but I do believe if we're gonna have an impact with the budget we have and the quote authority, then whatever we do, we gotta make sure that someone listens. So that's, I know we're in a transition period, but, don't waste our time if no one's gonna listen to it. So we have to have the value that we're gonna bring to the table to give it to you, and then empower you to figure out how to make the changes. Don't just sit around and talk. I know I'm saying that we're not, but we gotta figure out, you gotta also lead us, what your priorities are to make more effective and efficient decisions for our small business owners and, companies coming in. So that's just my thoughts on it.
So that's one piece of the equation, and whoever comes after me also will have to fill that role. But I think for the purposes of the committees, I think you did a good job of summarizing some of the things that literally frustrated me when I first sat in this job. I'm like, how did an application appear on my desk? How did they even know it was an application for whatever? Okay, where are the other applications?
With the files, yeah.
Exactly. So what's the policies, what's the process, how do you access the resources that, the abilities and powers that you all have that you can approve?
Right.
And so it should be a process defined. I'm a process person.
Me too.
And I think the public is looking for that, and I think you all are looking for that. So, just the basic, what are your fees? What are your applications? What do you do once the application comes? Who does it go to? What does it look like? And what powers do you have? I think just fundamental basic things that are needed foundationally. And then you get into the discussions of, okay, well, what are the priorities of the administration?
Okay.
And I think too, one thing that we have sort of talked about but never acted on, because you need that foundation first, is we work really well with Metro and the administration. That is very unique. That is not how IDBs in any other IDB in the state works, because we have our intergovernmental agreement. But that doesn't mean that we still don't actually have power where we do certain deals to collect certain fees that, you and I know that we used to do a lot of small business grants, right? And we haven't seen those in several years, and we were able to use federal money for a one-time injection, but we all lament how we're not actually helping our local businesses. We actually have the power to collect enough fees and make those grants directly from the IDB if we want, but we have to figure out that foundation first. And that also, I think, might be something Metro would support, because it doesn't have to be budgeted. We figure out other ways to support businesses, but we have a shocking amount of power on this board, and we don't even have an application for a lot of things we do.
To that end, and I think to all of the questions that have been asked, I think it makes sense for us to have a discussion on what are the powers that our charter allows us currently. What does TCA code annotated allow us to do? Like, could we broaden our own authority under the TCA? And then also just a discussion on the other IDBs in terms of what they're doing, so we can set up proper committees that would then, do those committees meet publicly? Do they meet privately? Is there a separate meeting time? There's so many questions we need to ask. I didn't know that we could purchase property until you just said it. I knew that they could own property, but purchase is a different thing than own.
We can acquire it now.
So
And Nigel did a really good PowerPoint that maybe y'all can share, because I think you weren't on the board. But the other thing is, the Covington firm was gonna come in last July and do a training on a lot of this. but with the turnover.
Carpenters.
And, I think Courtney's last day was like 2 days before that training was supposed to be, and so the training didn't happen. But I do actually think that time is time that would be really well spent.
Awesome. And then also, I think like knowing those at Powers, like where does the IDB currently stand financially? Because that's gonna help us guide our initiatives.
I don't know if you, I better not get it. And sorry, finish your point. There's some history, we're laughing, that's okay, but finish your point.
Well, it's just like if the IDB has $100,000 in the bank, that's gonna set our priorities different than if we have $1 million in the bank.
We have 61,000 in the bank right now.
But again, it's
You know,
to that point, like
69, yeah.
if we're here and we want to get to there, that's going to change our fee structure, right?
That's right. So, great point. So, couple items. So, as far as, committee goes, here would be and I talked with Metro Legal and Metro on this. So, if this board does want to set up a committee, it doesn't seem like there's anything on the agenda for next month. So, if we wanted to, we could certainly, just for ease of schedule, make next month's regular time a committee meeting. To your question, because I talked with Metro Legal about this, any committee, because we're public, any committee meeting that we have has to be public.
Okay.
So so it has to be noticed.
Got it.
And so one of the items after next week, and that would be something to decide in committee, certainly whoever's on the committee, but one option would be to try to meet before, if the committee want to meet before the IDB meeting, just so it's on the same day, that could potentially be an option. I know that I talked with Metro, just general conversation to see if they were available. Sounds like that could be an option, but obviously our meeting starts at 10, so we would, might need to make some changes, but that could be an option we could discuss in committee. To your other question about financials, I won't get into why I was laughing about that, but, certainly as far as, our fee structure, that would be a long-term goal, and I said this last year, I think, and I may not be on the board then, but certainly would be a long-term goal that this board acquire some property and then develop it as it sees fit. May not happen while I'm on the board, and that's okay, but we can do some things now that can potentially help us to get to that point where we can do it. So that's probably not something that's gonna be a short-term goal. And so kind of what I thought about over the last, several months is what are some short-term goals we could do, but then here are some long-term goals. And that may be one that, none of us may not be on the board then, but that would be, personally, that would be like my dream for this board, where this board has some property and from start to finish has the control to decide how it's developed.
Totally.
And obviously, we know what real estate costs are in Nashville. So, but there's maybe some different ideas we can, that we can do to do that. So I say that to say it's very exciting time. Everything is on the table. So I appreciate everyone's comments and questions. Board Member Wright.
Okay. I'm on board with everyone has said, and we want to get the carpenters involved. We need to get a central website. It has everything.
We know what you mean.
One point of access. On the money side, we need people to implement this. You can help with the website, but we need to hire some people to get the job done. Where's the first point? Where do we go to get the money?
So one simple way, right? Which, and I'll say Board Member Haston came in, remember last year we did an affordable housing meeting. Before you're on the board, you came and talked to us. So one simple item, and I'm just using this as an example. Take, for example, our bond application. So our bond fees right now, and I'm just using this as one example, it's $750. Okay, so that's been that way for probably 12 years, more, whatever. So one thing that we can do, and this is, I kind of alluded to this before, certainly this would be something that could be discussed in committee. I've talked with the carpenters, they just they obviously represent the Health and Ed Board in Memphis. So they just redid the Health and Ed Board's bond application fee process and all that stuff. So we could certainly start from scratch if we wanted to, but we could also use that kind of just as a foundation with everyone's approval. So we're starting with something. And the fees, for example, that the Health and Ed Board charges in Memphis are much higher. So I'm just using that as one example. So one way to generate the revenue is to change your fee structure. So anytime someone wants to apply for bond deals, you know, they're going through that application process, and there are fees up front for being on the agenda. There are fees if the bond deal is approved based on the amount, and then there are also ongoing fees as well. So right now, the revenue that we don't really have a good structure overall for revenue generation.
Okay. Well, that's,
So that's just one example.
okay, well, to me, that's pennies. We don't have enough people applying, organizations applying for bonds right now. So if you
Yet.
raise it to $10,000, then you start putting smaller organizations that want to apply, now they can't apply because they can spend $10,000.
That's right, because whatever you make it, it's applicable to everybody.
So
That's right.
where do we go to get money to run the IDB?
We have to probably through the mayor's budget.
Right. Can we just ask for some money? We need money over here to do what we gotta do. We're already volunteers, right? So we're spending our time, we're not getting paid to do this. So now we're having to spend more time to figure out how to raise money for an organization that's serving the general public.
Yeah.
So we just need to get money in to do what we need to do. We need to act, if we need $500,000, we need $500,000 to do our job. We can't do our job like this. Right now, we're just a pass-through. We hear things from the state, everybody gets grants, we okay them, but we can't handle what you mentioned before, the business that we're here to do. We can't actually do that because we don't have any funds to do it with.
I have a question. Latanya, does your office have a budget yet?
No,
Did
I
you say
don't,
yes?
but can I just
Do you have a
offer
proposed
this?
budget?
Say it again?
What, I know like last year, we tried to get 4 employees into the office before you were here,
No,
and
there's been no change.
that did
because,
not change.
Yeah, and I was at the meeting, and it got.
Let's go ask for that first.
He got kicked. And I'll just, to that point though, and great point, and I'll just tell you, I remember being at that meeting last year, and you're right, and that was one of the things that we've been talking about staffing wise. So I hear you, and so you make great points. I think what we're trying to do potentially with this committee is not say, don't do what you're doing, but let's control some of the things that we can control. So if we change our fee
I
structure.
think we can control this too. If we didn't show up, what would happen?
I think now
No,
is a
seriously,
good
if we-
time to go to all
Yeah, if we didn't show
25
up to do what we're
candidates.
doing now, what would happen?
Can
Go
I
ahead.
also interject?
Sure.
And I'm hoping I'm not speaking inappropriately. But from where I sit, until you all decide what you are going to do, because you have a lot of power and authority to do different things, it's very difficult to justify the need for a staff to do it. And also, please be mindful that there is a current council committee, the Tax Abatement Committee, I can't remember the full title, that Councilmember Berkeley Allen is leading, and that the very 2 meetings ago actually discussed that the fact that this IDB has a lot of power and a lot of authority to do a lot of creative things. And I can make sure you guys have that video as well. So there is a lot of attention currently placed on Metro's ability, IDB and others, MDHA, Health Net Board, to provide incentives, tax abatements, tips, whatever they are, for development, but also making sure that our residents are taken care of. So let me just go back to my original point. Until you all decide what you all want to do as a board, if I'm still here next year, and there's no guarantee that I will be, it would be very difficult for me to say X amount of staff is needed to support the IDB to get that done. And I could be speaking out of turn there, but I don't know.
Well, let's just make a list of all things we need to do and just put a price tag on them. Like, this is what needs to happen, and we need to
Is that what
have
the ad
X
hoc
amount of
meeting
staff.
Committee will do?
Here's
Right,
a good
that's the first thing.
example. I think Quinn had mentioned this just a second ago. I met the executive director of the IDB in Clarksville. And unless you are bringing childcare to Clarksville, they're not having any discussions about incentives, right? So you guys can make that decision or not, right? You already mentioned some examples about how to handle the small business incentive. So again, you guys have a lot of power and authority, and I could be wrong, Josh, in the statute is what you could do.
Right.
But you need to decide where you want to focus. And then, what's the process for that?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Are you sure?
Well, I was just gonna say briefly, just to make sure we're all on the same page. I mean, you guys are separate from Metro. Obviously, there's an interlocal agreement where we provide provide services to you, but you're a separate organization. You have the ability to control what it is that you do and what you want to do. There is money actually allocated in Metro's budget to give to this board every year for, I think, small business grants. And I think there's money for, I don't know, did
It's
they
about
like?
500,000
Yeah.
that Courtney got last year.
So
Do
there
we
is,
still, so
That's
is there
just for the
money,
grants.
is there still money in this?
I don't know, we'll have
Cause I
to
know
see.
a few years ago, it was
It was
taken,
cut.
it
It's
was
cut, yeah,
cut.
we'll have to see what the new, what budget gets passed. But
Okay.
I think in the mayor's proposed budget, it was still money.
It's no change from last year,
Yeah,
which was
so there's still money.
500,000.
So there is precedent for Metro providing money for this board to be able to do like grant programs and things like that. So to Latanya's point, if you guys want to go in that direction, you obviously do need to get the, whatever administration is on board to give you money, but that is an option that is available
So
to you
$500,000 sitting there, right?
for grants, for
Well,
small
for
businesses.
For grants, but I also will say.
Let's start getting out some grants.
When we hired the carpenters, not the
I mean-
Covingtons, but the carpenters, like, they said they would help us, at, I think, a reduced and partially free rate to help us do this planning.
Right.
So that we had it, cause they have the experience to do it.
Who said they would?
The carpenters,
yeah.
because they have the experience to do it, and frankly, as long as there are lawyers, they're gonna make money on the back end doing more
The
deals.
deals,
So
that's
it
right.
makes sense for them to get this board up to speed. We used to make money as a board before we entered into the agreement with Metro, which was due to nobody on this board or even like our immediate predecessors. There was some issues with the governance of the board, which is when Metro started holding the money and we started working more closely with Metro. I think in some ways it's been hugely beneficial because we can all be on the same page when it comes to economic development. But we had it was during Briley's budget crunch, we had several $100,000 from old bond fees we were still getting from old deals from the last downturn when rates were previously higher and we were doing a lot more bonds. We gave that all back to Metro,
Yeah, how much,
because
you remember how much that was?
$600,000.
That's right, just under 600,000.
Because we do have a duty under the statute, if we are not using our funds, we can't keep them. So we've always tried to keep around 60,000 because that's the most we can justify legally to hold unless we have a program to hold more. But most IDBs are pretty self-sustaining once you have those programs in place, and with interest rates where they are, I would anticipate that we would in the next couple of years start to have more bond deals that'll start to build that back up, but we do have to have like a purpose for that money, or we have to give it to Metro.
Okay, with that being said, I think the first thing we do always in government, if you don't spend it, you never get it again.
That's
If
right.
we got $500,000, first thing on the agenda, let's get a grant out there, out the door for small businesses. Let's spend all that money up.
Yeah.
Because if we're not gonna spend it, then they're gonna say, okay, why you need $1 million? If we
Well-
have $500,000, now that should be the first
I
thing,
think we'll
that's
look-
money we have.
You're right. Now, just to clarify, and great points. Sorry, you go ahead. Did you have a comment?
Well, I was just
Board
gonna
Member
say, I think what Latanya said is extremely important, especially where we are in terms of the political climate. We don't know who our
Right,
boss
right.
is gonna be, so I think spending time to figure out
What
what
we
we
want
wanna
to do.
do and not just like
And process and
shooting with
procedures.
our eyes closed.
And process and procedures.
Yeah, could actually help us like do all the things.
Right.
I think
But
you're
I think
right.
we need an action item. See,
I think you're right.
If we go ahead and spend that money, they can see, hey, okay, they can get money
But
out.
just
We
to be
don't
clear,
know if
we
that
don't-
money is there.
You just said it was there.
Well,
Potentially.
so there was money allocated in the current year's fiscal budget, but that has to be spent by the end of this month, so that's
That's
not
not,
gonna happen.
yeah, because Metro's legal year starts July 1st.
So we just gave her $500,000.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's been, I don't want to open a can of worms. I think that's been the case for a while. I think part of the problem has been that you've had so much turnover in your
Yes.
executive director. There just really hasn't been someone there to help
That's right. There used to,
guide that process.
Small
there was
business.
a person who, half her job was
Was-
just to
And when
give
we're-
out those grants, and we would give them out within the first 6 weeks
And
that
that was-
they were available.
and just to
We
be
got
clear-
it.
So that's the need.
So
See?
can I
mean,
offer, so
That's why we
if
need
the
the money
council
now.
approves again the same amount of money that has been sitting here, I'm more than willing to have my interns work on receiving those applications, cause there is an application process. Please remember that that money is divided into 2 different programs. One is the blighted property.
That's right.
The other is the fast-growing, whatever it's
Company.
called,
Yeah.
for the small businesses.
I think they have to have
500.
less than, like, so many employees,
Right.
cap of 100 employees.
So, council will decide on the budget. I have a few interns for the summer to jumpstart you come the next fiscal year to help spend that money. But that's different than this larger conversation of you guys establishing committees about what you want to do as a whole.
That's right.
Because that right there will be on me, to have my interns jump in, market it, get the information out, hopefully people will apply. And then if they do, have them review the applications to bring to you. That may take, a month or more,
And,
or longer, to
That's
be
right.
honest. But above and beyond that is,
Right.
you got the help here, you got some interns, maybe there's a possibility of hiring someone once the interns leave to help you further getting your fees in place, getting your applications in place, getting your process in place, all that good stuff.
Does our current authority allow us to receive funds, kind of like the Barnes funds, can receive donations? Can this board receive donations?
Yeah, you guys are you're a separate public nonprofit
From
corporation.
Metro.
Yeah, we're like our
So you can
own.
receive money.
We need to run this like a bank.
Yeah.
So we,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, stop playing around.
I'm glad y'all
Yeah.
fired up.
Yeah, we do. We need to have some,
So-
And it may be helpful, I'm sorry, if I can just say one thing, I think to something that Board Member Siegel, I got it right this time? I do think some board training would be helpful, and I think Margaret did something, I wanna say while I was here, but maybe it was before then, but I think something in conjunction with the carpenters probably would be good, cause I think you guys don't really know all that you can
I don't think, I've been probably the same amount of time, and I'm just thinking,
Yeah,
how
and
did- I did not realize.
And it's, great points. I really appreciate everyone's feedback, and this part of, I'm kind of skipping around a little bit of what I was gonna talk about shortly, but that's one of the reasons I put as one of the strengths of this board is we got a lot of passion, right? Look around. I mean, like, that's a huge strength. And we know about the stuff we've done already, right? But there's opportunities for us, so again, these are all things, so we're having great conversations today. And these are things where the committee, that can be discussed in committee, where the board, and we can set up a training with the carpenters, and then set, again, from my perspective, just how I always try to look at everything is, you got all this, right? But then after you figure out kind of the things you kind of want to do, what I've heard from this board consistently is, what I've seen this board get jazzed up about, I didn't see this board get jazzed up today about the Metro incentives. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying, I didn't feel super level of enthusiasm. But when Dominium has been here with affordable housing projects, I see a difference. I see it with the Madison Station deal. We're talking about what this board just approved, taking a retail center that's, probably, on the last end of it, that's not maximized, huge parking lot. Here's what we're doing. And also we're going to do there's also going to be affordable housing units. Right. So I think if I'm hearing all the feedback, we know we want to do more affordable housing, right? We know we'd love to do more small business incentive grants. Right. And I can just tell you, one of the challenges we had with the small business incentive grants is, and this is where marketing comes in, is it was great, but not everybody knew about it. So it was awesome. And this board was.
Know about it.
And this
But I
board.
knew they had $500,000 10 months ago.
Yes.
It's been spent.
So I have a question about the $500,000. Can it be spent on programming, or does it have to every dollar has to go to?
So,
We just spent this month.
need to clarify, so in the Metro Code, there is a actual statute that I'll say statute, there's a ordinance that talks about what that money can be spent on, so it actually delineates who qualifies and all that, and I don't know off the top of my head, but. So to answer your question, the $500,000 is not on anything, it's limited to what Metro has put in that ordinance as to what.
Okay.
The blind property and the.
In the small business. Fast
But
track.
you get what I'm saying, can we hire a marketer? Can we
It's a grant to a particular.
put it on the radio?
Well, can I make a point?
I mean, you know what I mean? It's $500,000. Can $100,000 be spent for administrative costs
Oh, I
to
see what you're saying.
Yeah.
hire somebody to do
Something
the
like that,
marketing?
administrative fee.
Hire a manager.
I think
I think it's all small grants, but
I
let me,
think that's
under Mayor Dean, I remember they had a small business, huge amount of money for small businesses. And I remember they did an event and invited all the council members, invited their people in their neighborhoods or their district to come to this event to hear about small business grounds. And it was held off by Second Avenue, some big entertainment place, and there's all speaking about small business grounds. And for me, being Hispanic, it was not diverse at all. And so I approached Shauna Huey, who was there, and I said, okay, come on, we gotta have more. Our people in some of the, where the global community businesses are, they don't even know this things exist. So then she got people from all the different ethnic groups, the minorities, and they had a separate one, just to understand it. But that was an effort done by the mayor's office. Shauna Huey, I don't even know what her role was back then. But it was all to promote small business process and procedures. And I don't think it's this board that did it, but it's been done. And we gotta get the count, once we know that.
What the outcome was? Because honestly, I have been trying to get a list.
I will find out, because I have that.
Grants, and I've seen very few.
But what happened was, we worked with the council members to get the right people at these meetings, to show up so they know. And and because the people who, you're gonna get your constituents, and, those people, a lot of Bellevue people were there, you know what I mean, small businesses, because they have different relationships, but again, it was trying to get small businesses an incentive. So it's been done, maybe not this department, but someone has to take the ball and do it, and I don't know what her role was back
So
then.
I would say like,
Great
just
point.
a
Thank
year
you, Board
ago,
Member
we
Oakley.
did that with Pathway Lending. Us, corner to corner.
And we're gonna do it again, because
Right.
I just got more money approved for Corner to Corner and Hispanic Chamber, and Pathway's gonna change their requirements. As soon as we get some, back-end administrative stuff taken care of.
And
we're
so,
gonna
you
launch
know, I
that.
know for the Equity Alliance,
Yeah.
in general, we had 150 businesses that applied.
Right, and
Black
Pathways did a
businesses
lot.
and brown.
Yeah, they did,
So I
Pathways did
think
a lot.
it's just programming, but I think that's easy. Well, for me, that comes easy. I can give you a plan right now on that. The hard part is, what are the rules?
Yeah.
Where's the money? And what we gonna do with it?
Yeah,
And
and
where's the staffing to get it done?
Yeah, and the rules I think are an important point, because we do have a metro ordinance, and historically, the grants, like we did, Goodwood's, it was like a $10,000 grant
that
to
was
do
one of
their
them.
John
facade.
Dickerson.
I'll send you the list of the
yeah.
ones that have been done that I could locate.
But
'Cause they're
fac-
actually on the website, they on.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
haven't done
so
it, it's
the-
been a few
that we're
years.
The facades can be helpful for a group opening up a retail space with property taxes how
Blighted,
they are,
that's
like
right.
it's not gonna be as used. Similarly, the fast-growing businesses, was really helpful to a few businesses, but most businesses, there were income, or there
There's
were,
cap.
it was like, the numbers you had to meet on what you were paying and the types of work and how many people they were hiring, it was, checking all the boxes was hard. A lot of people could check all but one, and the one varied. But that's where the planning, we can say, what's actually really helpful is like Corner to Corner has people and they're starting up businesses, and what they really need are $5,000 startup grants or $2,500 startup grants, and that's not included in the ordinance. And then you can go to council and say, hey, can we amend this ordinance to include this type of program too? Because that's where we really see a need for people today, right?
Yeah. So, really great discussion, and I think today we see we have a lot of expertise, and again, this board has a lot of strengths, so it sounds like, and again, I just try to come back to goals, okay? So I just told you my dream, this doesn't necessarily be the board's, but my dream would be that we generate enough revenue or figure out a way where this board acquires property and develops it from start to finish and sees how it's done. That's probably not something we can do in the short term necessarily, but there certainly are some short-term goals that we can do, that can be further discussed in committee, such as the bond application. The Commerce can help with that. There's one that's out there, so we're not starting from scratch. And if we want to do for example, I had an affordable housing developer that I met with last year after we discussed it during the transition. It was months ago when I met with them, didn't know anything. They reached out, and they may be coming to this board down the line for bond issuance or TIF deals. Again, I can't speak to for sure, but there's some interest there. Well, so step one, let's get the bond application. Let's get that. That's a short-term, low-hanging fruit
Who does that?
that we can do.
The ad hoc committee?
So that's something we could,
Yeah.
the board would have to adopt it.
It looks like this is the ad hoc committee.
The
We all
board-
have the same come
The
and go.
board would have to adopt it, but if we want to spend more time and really get into it more, the committee could
So
provide
then I call
feedback
for
and
the
then bring
discussion,
it
or
to it.
call for the, IDB ad hoc committee, what, let's call for discussion, is that how you call it? Is that what
You wanna call it for approval, to approve the committee?
Like, what's the solution?
So the first step,
One committee, don't.
yeah, we just need
That's
one
what-
committee. So the first
Yeah,
step,
more is the one you said, right?
we could later.
Yeah.
I would say
They
step
going
one
in
is
is
we
one
gotta-
main committee to get it done.
Yes, step one would be we need to establish a committee.
Right,
That's step one, but let me did you wanna make a motion to establish a committee?
No, I'm just trying to move forward as I think we all are in agreement that we're gonna have a committee. And
So
then,
we have to establish the committee
Right.
first.
Let's go ahead and do
So do you
that.
wanna do that? That's what I was
I was gonna
asking.
say call, I guess, I don't know.
So you make a
Make a
motion
motion.
to
Oh,
establish.
no, I know
the
the motion, but I was trying to say, let's wrap this up so that we can call the motion, but
So-
all right, then I make a motion that we have an ad hoc committee, and in that ad hoc committee, we will determine, the priorities. Okay, the ad hoc committee.
Maybe, you say how you want, but maybe just a thought.
I make a
Maybe we
motion to
gotta
have an
discuss that more in
ADB ad
committee.
hoc committee.
To discuss the processes and procedures of the Industrial Development Board and to make recommendations related to same.
And budget.
So we have
Broad
some
enough.
general.
Yes.
That's where I was going.
Right.
All right, so we have a motion
Second.
by Board Member Oakley, properly second. Sorry,
I'm sorry. I
Let's-
would suggest you might want to establish the number on the committee, or
should I, okay, so let me come, okay. So we have a second.
Yeah, need,
Any,
Discussion, yeah.
any discussion? You had a comment?
Well, I mean, I think it will remain relevant once we establish said committee, but if we're gonna establish processes, I think we need to know powers first. And then from there, I think that's gonna let us figure out what our goals are gonna be, and our goals are gonna be driven by what we know works well elsewhere.
That's right. So these are things that would have, it sounds like you're talking about things that would potentially be discussed later in
Correct.
committee.
Correct.
So, there's a motion on the floor. Legal has recommended a number. I mean, so let me just ask the question. Who in here wants to be on the committee? Raise your hand if you don't mind.
I'm fine with that.
so
You don't want, okay, I want to be on. So,
Did you have
How
that?
many meetings we gonna have?
so
the
that's,
point. That's
so that's what, good point. So this is what I was just saying. What I was just saying is, it just would just be a recommendation. Again, committee can decide. Next, in July, we don't necessarily have any matters that need to come before the board. So one thought would be if potentially do a training, something like that, have our first committee meeting at the actual meeting time. Just to, and then during the committee, we can discuss the cadence on how often we need to meet, et cetera. I did talk with Metro because again, with this committee, because we're a public board, we can't just meet together. It's got to get public notice, just same thing like these meetings. So, we would have to set a schedule and, we want Metro there as well. So that's why I said one option could be down the line. We've moved our meetings to the second Wednesdays as of right now. Obviously, we can, if we need to change it, we can later. Would be we could establish having a committee meeting potentially before. That way it's on the same day. If you're already coming to the IDB meeting, you're coming to committee meeting, you're already there. But that would be something for the committee to decide. So, back to Metro Legal's point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 people said they want to be on the board, on the committee. We can potentially change that later. Would you like to amend your motion to include
I amend the
cap of
motion
5 people?
that Quinn said, to cap it at 5 people.
Thank you. So, motion amended.
it's an amended motion.
So, do we have a second?
second.
All right. Any discussion?
Real fast. Why do we even have an ad hoc committee when we can do it ourselves right here? I mean, there's all 5 of you, this is why,
I guess if we wanted to just have a separate meeting, let's say we have
That
a
way
normal
you just
meeting.
focus,
And then
it's
we,
gonna have to be public anyway.
it is, but,
Okay, I'm just
So-
saying is,
and that's why I said, and just to be clear, let me also be
Well,
clear.
I think
You don't have to be on the ad hoc committee.
Right.
this
I know
is,
that, but I'm just saying
Well,
is,
this is the thing that I think the AdCom is, when we have our normal meeting, it's
We have
things
an
that's on the agenda.
we can't,
This
you
committee
can only get
is
into it so
specifically
much.
I get
just
it,
for
I get it.
this,
I
at
get
all.
it, but we don't have, we can meet more than once.
Right, but
If I
then
can
we
just
open it
offer-
up.
If I can just offer a distinction.
Again, to everything
So,
else.
With the ad hoc
Did you-
committee,
yes.
you will be obviously giving recommendations to the full board to make a decision. If it was the full board doing it, since you guys would be deliberating on things that you actually may end up voting on
Thank you.
later, you're gonna have to have a quorum for every time that you meet.
Okay, thanks for that distinction.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah.
So with the ad hoc committee, so we're saying 5 people.
Okay, so
If
there's a
2
vote.
people show up or 3
gotta
people
meet.
show up,
Still do work.
we
We
can
gotta
still get stuff done.
Right.
And, you know,
Okay, then I make, can
So
we
you
call
said
for the vote?
do we, second,
Second.
do we have discussion? Question.
What's going on right
I know you're getting confused. I'm like, hey, what are they doing?
All right, here we go. Let me put this together. Board Member Oakley, let me try to put this together. Board Member Oakley made a motion to establish an ad hoc committee of
5?
well, 5 people.
now?
Or maybe-
She said.
That's it, that's all you have.
And then
You got it, right? It's filmed.
and then that's yeah.
Yeah, you need to go
We
back
got
and
it.
look at
So Board Member Oakley made that motion. Board Member Wright
Second it.
second, so we have proper second. And now we're on any discussion. But great question because it was a lot going on.
No problem, I was confused too. so-
Any discussion? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So, step 2.
No one's opposed, just for the record.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Better not, not scared.
Any
Not all
of-
that.
Is there anyone opposed?
Okay.
All right. Good to go. And I'm
Some
gonna,
folks out there.
and I'm gonna get you guys out of here before lunchtime. We're about to get out of here. All right. Oh gosh, I needed these laughs tonight. Seriously, thank you all. Seriously. All right. So, based on Robert's rules, as chair, I want to appoint. Oh, you had your hand up, right? Board member-
If we only having one extra meeting.
Well, we'll have to figure that out on the
Okay,
committee.
okay. Oh, I
So-
get to, as the chair of the committee, I get to pick.
I mean, we'll figure that out in committee. But here's the point to your question about meetings. We can figure that out in committee. And again, committee is, we don't necessarily have to have a quorum. And obviously, I appreciate everybody's time. So if you start on the committee, you don't feel like look, that's fine. And same thing for board. You've never heard me say anything to anybody about attendance if they come or don't come to a meeting, because personally, I know it's volunteer. I appreciate everybody's time. So, Board Member Johnson, appoint Board Member Johnson, Board Member Wright, Board Member Heston, Vice Chair, Chair Hodge, as the 5.
Okay.
You appointed Tequila as a chair, I think she said that.
Oh, no, I thought we did, I just appointed board members in
Okay,
general.
I was like, oh,
He
okay,
voted
we
for
just
himself
add more
as the
level,
chair
even
of this
more
No,
level.
I was just saying as board member.
Oh,
Those
okay.
5 people
No, just
are-
5 board
Okay.
members, that's
Oh,
it.
okay, okay.
I thought you was
Okay.
resigning, Nigel.
You never know the future, but.
The committee chair.
But just board, I'm just pointing, just to clarify, I'm just pointing 5 members to the committee, to the ad hoc committee.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
We don't have to do that.
We don't have to.
You don't have to, but just, while we're at it, let's just go.
Okay,
I
just
motion that
motion.
we approve the 5 committee members.
A second.
All those in favor?
Yeah.
Outstanding. Oh, sorry. See, y'all are messing me up today. All right, I'm sorry. I'm slipping today. I'm sorry. Are there any opposed? All right, sorry. I need my snacks too.
Yeah.
All right. So, motion carried. I appreciate everyone's time. I will very quickly, just quick updates.
Before we move on to the next
Yes.
thing, is there a way that if we're gonna discuss this at the next meeting, can we make a motion to invite the carpenters?
Oh, I think we.
We don't
just
need a
invite-
motion.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll check, through Metro on their schedule and see.
I think
We
it
get
makes
them.
sense that we invite the carpenters, but that also it makes sense that we invite potentially other Metro departments that we would be working with long-term to be sitting in the audience, so their wheels are turning as they're hearing these authorities. Just
So-
an idea.
So, great idea. So I think we can certainly do that, and part of what I'm about to talk about now is to your point. So, again, to board members' Wright's point, and the reason for the committee is to allow us to kind of get into those things in more detail, aside from our regular agenda. So, certainly this board, we've had Angie Hubbard come to this board previously. Obviously, another option, another great resources that we have to come, whether it's this upcoming meeting or future meetings. One thing since the last meeting, and I'll be brief, last January, I asked the Urban League and Amazon to come to this board to give an update on the RED program. And so spoke with their executive director. They're obviously with the program, the real estate development program, bringing developers in that have some experience focused on minority developers, affordable housing, but bring developers in through this coursework, right? Partnership with the Urban League. So they're about to graduate later this year. So had some conversation with their executive director on, potentially having them come as well. So again, that's another opportunity for us as a board, should this committee want to, start partnering with these developers. So when they're finished with the program, because obviously the goal of the program for these developers is once they're finished and graduate, keep running, right? So those are like low-hanging fruit things that if this committee wants to pursue, we can do. So we've already talked about the carpenter firm. Again, I think I'll pass these around very quickly, but I think also just low-hanging fruit that we can do is continuing to, I'm always about leveraging current relationships that we have. So we've obviously established a relationship with Dominium. So pass some of these around if you want to see it.
What was this 900?
Yeah, so this is 900 Cleveland Park. So these are some recent pictures, if you want to pass those. And I'll send. Oh, yeah, we're almost, thought you'd done like 2 minutes. But anyway, so we've got that opportunity as well, so continue to leverage relationships and use that to our advantage, because we're already making some work. And then TIF deals. So that's something unique that we have as well that this board can do, the TIF piece. So anyway, really exciting. So we'll figure it out and then figure out the cadence on committee and all that stuff. So really appreciate everyone's time today.
Sorry to keep interrupting. Before we adjourn, what's your name?
David.
David, is there any way by this time next month that you can bring back a report on the various programs, those fee structures of each of, you named off 5 different IDBs, as well as the timeline of goals that those different IDBs had? Like, if we're talking about wanting to get money in the bank, obviously these guys didn't have money in the bank first either. So how long did it take them to get from A to B?
He may
in
not
those programs?
Yeah,
I was gonna say
He
that
may not know
Yeah.
that
the
at all.
A to B may take some like phone calls, so that
Yeah.
may be longer than a month, but the rest of it, yes.
Absolutely,
about
and he's
this?
also researching what's happening around the state as well.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yes.
say, that's gonna be
Yep.
really important too, because we are dealing with businesses who have a lot of political power, and we do need to stay consistent with what is being done in the
Because
state.
I've done a lot with Memphis,
Yep.
Knoxville, Clarksville.
Yep.
And we'll make sure too.
Also, who's gonna, I'm sorry,
No, go ahead.
who's gonna build the website?
We can do that.
Metro, yeah.
The Metro, you-
Because y'all already have a page,
Okay.
but it's what we do with the page.
We gotta
we already
get the-
have.
Okay.
And just to be clear, first thing, we gotta get information updated.
Once you
Right.
have the content.
That's one, we gotta get the content first.
Once you have the content, send it to me or him and he'll post it.
And to your point, the other thing to that point, we can send out the Health and Ed Board in Memphis as well. That doesn't mean we have to use that as our bond, but again, I'm all about why start from scratch? Like, no need to
Trying
reinvent
start
the
from
wheel.
scratch and never do
He's
that.
already looking at Edge's website as well.
Yeah.
Arbiter represents Edge, which is their IDB.
So, we'll do that. So, any other comments or questions?
See you later.
I think we're good.
All right,
I'm good.
Thank you.
all right, we'll go ahead and adjourn. Thank you everyone for your time today.
Thank you,
Appreciate you.
thank you, Butch.
Thank you.
Just trying to make sure.